The holiday lights twinkled across my parents' living room, reflecting off the ornaments on the 12-foot tree. Christmas Eve dinner was in full swing. 3 generations of Castellanos gathered around the extended dining table, the smell of roasted lamb and garlic filling the air. My mother had outdone herself as always. Everything was perfect, festive, exactly as tradition demanded. My brother Marcus sat at the head of the table beside my father, holding court about his retirement plans. "We're pulling the trigger in March," he said, grinning widely. 48 years old and done with corporate life. Lisa and I are buying an RV and driving cross-country for a year. Maybe 2. "That's amazing," my Aunt Rosa said. "You've earned it working all those years." "What about your mortgage?" my Uncle Tony asked. "You paying that off first?" Marcus waved dismissively. "We'll figure it out. Life's too short to keep grinding away. We want to enjoy ourselves while we're still young enough to adventure." My mother beamed. "We're so proud. Both our children doing so well. Marcus retiring early and Sophia with her successful pharmacy. We raised them right." I sat quietly in my usual spot, working through my roasted vegetables, contributing only when directly addressed. It was easier to fade into the background at family gatherings. Safer. That's when my cousin David arrived, apologizing for being late. A financial analyst at a major bank, David had an eye for patterns and numbers. He was also the person I'd confided in 2 months ago when I'd finally made my decision. Sorry, David said, shaking snow from his coat and settling into the chair across from me. "Last-minute client crisis." He accepted a plate from my mother, then looked directly at me with a knowing smile. "Sophia, how are you feeling? 2 months out. Any regrets?" I set down my fork carefully. "None. It was overdue." "I bet," he said. 4 years is a long time to be the only one actually funding an account. Proud of you for finally drawing the line." The table went quiet. Marcus's retirement story died mid-sentence. The Christmas music playing in the background suddenly seemed too loud. "What line?" my mother asked carefully. David glanced around the table, his expression shifting as he realized he'd stumbled into something. But David dealt in financial truth. It was his job. "The mortgage account. Sophia froze it 2 months ago. I helped her review the documentation before she made the call." "What mortgage account?" my father asked, his voice strained. David pulled out his phone. He always kept records. "The joint account Sophia set up in 2020. Let me pull up the details." He scrolled through his screen. "Monthly transfers of $3,200 for 48 months. That's $153,600 over 4 years. Sophia was the sole depositor and legal account holder. Jim and Patricia, you had access to spend from it for the mortgage, but you never actually funded it." "That's impossible," my father said, but his face had gone pale. "It's thoroughly documented," David said, turning his phone to show spreadsheets. "Every deposit came from Sophia's pharmacy income. The account was established in her name with her social security number. You were added as authorized users, but the ownership was always solely Sophia's. I verified it with the bank myself." The silence was crushing. Even my young nieces stopped fidgeting. Everyone was staring. "Sophia," my mother whispered. "What is he talking about?" I took a sip of wine. "Exactly what he said. I've been paying your mortgage for 4 years. The account was always mine. You just had access to use it." "Why?" My father's voice was barely audible. "Because you asked me to," I said calmly. "In November 2020, right after the second wave of the pandemic hit, Marcus had been furloughed and you were both worried about losing the house. You called me crying, said the mortgage was $3,200 monthly and you couldn't afford it with Marcus out of work and your own hours reduced. You asked if I could help temporarily." The memory settled over the table like a heavy blanket. "That was 4 years ago," my Aunt Rosa said slowly. "Yes, I agreed. It was supposed to be temporary. 3 months, maybe 6, until Marcus went back to work and things stabilized. But then Marcus got his job back in March 2021 and no one mentioned stopping. Then Mom and Dad's hours were restored in summer 2021, and still no one mentioned stopping. By 2022, everyone's finances were stable, but I was still making monthly mortgage payments. By 2023, Marcus was planning early retirement while I was still funding Mom and Dad's house." David nodded, scrolling through his records. The financial recovery pattern is clear. By mid-2021, the household was financially stable. Jim and Patricia's combined income returned to approximately $98,000 annually. Marcus and Lisa's income exceeded $160,000. The mortgage was easily affordable by the family without Sophia's help. But the transfers continued for 3 more years. "Why didn't you say something?" my mother asked, tears forming. "I did," I said quietly. 6 times. Twice in 2021 when I asked if you still needed help. Twice in 2022 when I mentioned I was trying to save for my own house. Once in early 2023 when I directly suggested ending the arrangement. And once in August this year when I said I couldn't sustain this indefinitely. "What did we say?" my father asked, though his expression suggested he already knew. "You said that family takes care of family. That I made good money as a pharmacist and could afford to help. That you'd raised me and this was how I could give back. That I was single with no children so I had more disposable income than I needed. That Marcus and Lisa were building their future and needed everyone's support." Marcus found his voice. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know you were paying the mortgage." "Yes, you did," David interjected, pulling up more documents. "Sophia forwarded me your text messages. In September you texted her about the RV retirement plan. You wrote, 'Thanks for keeping Mom and Dad stable so Lisa and I can focus on our dreams. We'll pay you back when we sell the house someday.' You knew exactly what was happening." Marcus's face went from pale to red. "And 2 months ago?" my Aunt Rosa asked gently. 2 months ago Marcus called me," I said. He was excited about finalizing the retirement date. We talked for over an hour about his plans, the RV they'd picked out, the route they'd planned. Then at the end of the call he said, "Obviously you'll keep covering the mortgage while we're gone. Mom and Dad can't afford it on their own and we'll need our savings for the road. It's only $3,200. That's nothing for you." "Oh no," my Aunt Rosa whispered. "That's when I called David," I said. "I asked him to review everything objectively. To tell me if I was wrong for wanting to stop." David set down his phone. I looked at 4 years of financial records. Sophia's been living in a 1-bedroom apartment since 2020 because she spent her house down payment on the initial pandemic support. $15,000 she gave the family before the monthly payments even started. She's been driving a 2014 Toyota with 160,000 miles because she can't afford a new car while making $3,200 monthly transfers. She's been working overtime shifts at the pharmacy, extra nights, extra weekends, to afford the transfers on top of her own expenses. The words hung in the air. Meanwhile, David continued, Jim and Patricia refinanced to a 30-year mortgage in 2022, resetting the payment timeline and increasing their total interest paid by approximately $80,000, while Sophia was paying the monthly bill. Marcus and Lisa bought a second car in 2023, a $35,000 SUV, while planning early retirement funded partially by Sophia's mortgage payments, freeing up their own income. "We didn't know," my mother said weakly. "You chose not to know," David said, his voice sharp. "The account statements came to Sophia's address. You had access to spend from it but never asked where the $3,200 appeared from every month. For 4 years, you just assumed the money would always be there." My father put his head in his hands. "What happened 2 months ago?" "On October 23rd at 9:47 a.m. I called the bank," I said. "I froze the account. I removed everyone's access. I transferred the remaining balance, $6,400 that had accumulated from extra deposits, back to my personal savings. And I sent certified letters to everyone explaining that the financial support was ending immediately." "Immediately?" My mother's voice rose. "How were we supposed to manage?" "The same way everyone manages," David said. "With your actual income. I reviewed your finances with Sophia before she froze the account. Your combined income is $98,000 annually. Your mortgage is $3,200 monthly. That's $38,400 annually. That's less than 40% of your gross income. It's affordable. Tight but affordable." "But we have other expenses," my father protested. "Then you prioritize," David said. "You cut discretionary spending. You reduce dining out. You cancel subscriptions. You build a budget based on actual income, not on Sophia's subsidies." What about the December payment? My mother asked, panic creeping into her voice. You paid it yourselves, I said. For the first time in 4 years. It was due December 1st, 9 days after I froze the account. You had to actually look at your finances and figure out how to cover it. It wiped out our Christmas budget, my mother said bitterly. Welcome to reality, David said bluntly. Sophia's been wiping out her own savings, her own future, her own Christmas budgets for 4 years so you could maintain your lifestyle. Now you're experiencing what she's been experiencing, having to make hard financial choices. Marcus leaned forward. What about my retirement? We've been planning this for 2 years. Then you'll need to adjust your plans, I said. Either postpone retirement or sell the house to free mom and dad from the mortgage, or take a smaller RV or work part-time on the road. But my money won't be funding your retirement dream. But we've already bought the RV, Marcus said. We're locked in. Then you figure it out, David said. You're 48 years old with 2 incomes. You should be able to solve your own financial puzzles without depending on your sister who's been subsidizing your parents' mortgage for 4 years. My mother started crying. How can you do this to us? On Christmas Eve. I didn't do this, I said calmly. David mentioned it. But yes, it's done. The account is frozen. The funding has ended. Permanently. We're your family, my father said, his voice breaking. Yes, I agreed. And for 4 years I've been a very generous family member. I've funded $153,600 of mortgage payments on a house I don't live in. But somewhere along the way I stopped being Sophia your daughter and became Sophia the automatic payment. And I'm done being that. David finished his wine. For what it's worth, Sophia handled this correctly from a legal and financial perspective. The account was always hers. She had every right to close it at any time. She gave advance notice via certified letter. She's been more than fair. Fair? My mother's voice was sharp. She's ruining Christmas. No, my Aunt Rosa said quietly. She's setting boundaries. And we should have respected those boundaries 3 years ago. The Christmas Eve dinner continued in uncomfortable silence. The lamb grew cold on plates. The carefully prepared side dishes went largely untouched. My mother disappeared to the kitchen multiple times, crying. Marcus and Lisa left early, claiming a headache. My young nieces sensed the tension and asked to be excused. Only David and Aunt Rosa stayed engaged. Sophia, Rosa said gently. What are you going to do now? Live my own life, I said. I've spent 4 years working overtime to fund someone else's mortgage. Now I'm going to use that money to build my own future. Good, she said firmly. It's about damn time. I left shortly after, citing an early pharmacy shift on Christmas Day. It was a lie but necessary. I needed distance from the guilt and tears. The drive home through the snowy streets was quiet. My phone buzzed constantly. Texts from Marcus, calls from my parents, a voice message from my mother begging me to reconsider. I silenced it all. At home in my small apartment I pulled up my bank accounts. 2 months of not making $3,200 monthly transfers, and my savings had grown by $6,400. Combined with the $6,400 I'd transferred back from the frozen account, I had $12,800 in liquid savings for the first time in 4 years. I opened a real estate website and started browsing seriously. 2-bedroom condos. Places with updated kitchens and parking spots. Places I could actually afford now. 3 days later my father called. I answered on the 4th ring. We made the December payment, he said without preamble. And we'll make January's. We cut our monthly spending by $800. It's tight but we're managing. That's good, I said. Your brother postponed retirement. He's staying another year to build a bigger cushion. Okay. Sophia, he paused. We're sorry. Really sorry. We took advantage of your generosity. We let temporary help become permanent dependency. That was wrong. I felt unexpected tears. Thank you for saying that. Will you come to New Year's dinner? Please? Just family. No money talk. I hesitated. Will it be awkward? Probably. But we miss you. And we want to try again. Without the financial complications. I'll come. 2 weeks later I attended New Year's dinner. The atmosphere was different, quieter, more thoughtful. My mother hugged me tightly and whispered, I'm sorry. My father kept refilling my water glass like he was trying to make amends. Marcus was subdued, talking about his job instead of retirement dreams. Only David and Aunt Rosa seemed comfortable, steering conversation to neutral topics and filling awkward silences with stories. After dinner, Marcus pulled me aside. "I'm working with a financial advisor now. She said Lisa and I can retire in 3 years if we're disciplined. But it requires us paying our own way, not depending on anyone else." "That's smart," I said. "I really didn't understand the full picture," he continued. "I knew you were helping Mom and Dad, but I didn't think about where the money came from or what it cost you. I just assumed you could afford it." "I couldn't," I said. "I was choosing to afford it by giving up my own goals. There's a difference. I see that now. I'm sorry. I forgive you. But the boundary stays." "I know. It should." 3 months after Christmas, I sat with David at a coffee shop reviewing mortgage pre-approval documents. "You're approved for up to $320,000, he said. "With your improved savings rate, you'll hit your 20% down payment target in another 6 months. 9 months total," I said. "After 4 years of funding someone else's mortgage. But now you're building equity in your own property," he said. "That's what matters. You're investing in yourself instead of subsidizing them." "It feels strange," I admitted. "Having money just stay in my account." "That's called financial independence," he said, smiling. "You'll get used to it." I closed on a 2-bedroom condo 5 months later. Granite countertops, stainless appliances, a balcony overlooking the city. Nothing extravagant but mine. Completely entirely mine. My family came to the housewarming. My parents brought plants. Marcus and Lisa brought wine and congratulated me genuinely. Aunt Rosa brought homemade cookies and hugged me tight. David stood in the corner with a satisfied smile, watching his cousin finally build her own life. "To Sophia," my father said, raising his glass. "To her new home. We're proud of you, sweetheart." "To boundaries," David added, catching my eye. "To boundaries," I echoed. 6 months after that Christmas Eve, I sat on my balcony watching the sunset over the city. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "Still working. Lisa and I are saving 40% of our income now. Building real financial security. Thanks for the wake-up call." I smiled and typed back, "Proud of you." Another text came from my mother. "Dad and I built a 3-month emergency fund. First time in our lives. Financial independence feels good. Thank you for forcing us to grow up." I responded, "I'm glad you're building stability." A final text from David. "Your savings rate is impressive. At this pace you'll have your mortgage paid off in 12 years. This is what wealth building looks like when you're not funding other people's lives." I typed back, "Couldn't have done it without your honesty. Thank you." As the sun disappeared behind the buildings, I thought about that Christmas Eve 6 months ago. The shock on everyone's faces when David revealed the truth. The panic in my mother's voice. Marcus's stunned silence. At the time, it had felt like I was destroying something precious. Now, 6 months later, sitting in my own condo with growing savings and a family learning financial responsibility, it felt different. It felt like liberation. Like the day I stopped being their safety net and started being myself. Not Sophia the automatic mortgage payment. Not Sophia with extra money. Just Sophia. With her own home, her own savings, her own future. My phone buzzed one more time. A reminder I'd set 6 months ago. Future check-in, worth it? I looked around my condo. My furniture, my mortgage, my life. I checked my accounts. My savings, my investments, my security. I typed a response. Absolutely worth it. They needed to learn they could survive without my money. I needed to learn I deserved to keep it. Best boundary I ever set. I hit save. Then I poured another glass of wine and watched the city lights flicker on one by one. For the first time in 4 years, I wasn't calculating mortgage payments or reviewing family budgets or worrying about whether I could afford to help. I was just living. My life. My way. With my money. And that felt exactly right. That felt like home.